This episode of Around the Layout is brought to you by Spring Creek Model Trains. Family owned for nearly 25 years, Spring Creek is your destination for model trains. Check out springcreekmodeltrains.com for a wide variety of offerings from today's top manufacturers and exclusive products found nowhere else. Whether in Deschler, Nebraska, or at a train show near you, stop in and say wow. To see where they'll be next, visit their website at springcreekmodeltrains.com. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to Around the Layout, where model railroaders come to tell their story. My name is Ray Arnott. So glad you could join us live. And joining me to tell us what's happening in model railroading, the man himself, the editor of Model Railroad News, Tony Cook. Tony, welcome.
Hey, Ray, how you doing?
Always fun to try something different, isn't it? And after this big event that everybody has, we led up talking about it, the Railroad Hobby Show in West Springfield, Massachusetts. We got so much news and things that happened, not only with the podcast, but in the business, that we said, well, heck, let's go live and give this a whirl. So live without a net, here we are. We're recording this live. And if you're catching us live, we welcome you. If you're catching us on the audio replay that we'll be putting out, we'll welcome to the show as well. And glad you're able to catch up with us as, boy, I'm sure a big pile of stuff showed up on your desk over the weekend.
It's been a busy week. Yeah, very much so. There was always a number of things I see ahead of the shows that are going to be announced, as they start putting materials together, but always a lot of surprises too on the back end of things. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well,
how'd you enjoy the show? The weather was good, I think.
The weather was good. The show was amazing. It went by so fast. And, it started for us. I mean, we had prep going right up into it. And, the big announcement that we were giving away the 5 CSX heritage units from ScaleTrains was certainly a big moment, but a lot of prep went into that, and especially at the last minute. So it had me moving pretty much all week. And then we went up Friday, we set up and got to see some folks as they were setting up. Always neat to see behind the scenes, like how much goes into setting up a show of 4 buildings and 350,000 square feet. It is a big orchestrated dance to put that show on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think I forget who told me, but in the last day I've heard that I think it was another attendance record. I've not heard officially from John Sacerdoti yet. He usually puts out information, but I think it was another big record attendance year.
I have the number in front of me. 27,535 was the total population of the show. Wow. That's a combination of 2 days of door plus all the vendors counted once. He made that very clear on a couple shows that he doesn't count me twice being there Saturday and Sunday. I only count once. But 27,535 people. Amazing. The camaraderie is always the fun part. Just seeing these folks that I haven't seen really since last year in person, may have talked to them over the screen, and even people that, maybe I didn't even see them last year, meeting them for the very first time. Certainly cool. One of those folks was really neat to see was Rob Arsenault from Weather My Trains. And he was so thrilled to be there, made the trip all the way from Edmonton to see the show, and was great. We did a meet and greet at the booth on Saturday, so folks got to stop by and see him, meet him in person, and share his work. We had a few of his examples on the table, so really cool to see guys like that. And then, of course, all the good friends. And boy, I wouldn't even want to try to start listening, because you know what's going to happen, Tony. I'm going to leave somebody out, and then I'll get a text saying, "Hey, what about me?" So yeah, it was great to see all those folks. So really great time. Giving away that. And then we add a little bonus to it. We gave away 2 cars from Home Shops and our friend Chris Palmieri. So he gave us 2 cars to give away. I wouldn't even want to try to say the names of the roads because I would completely mess those up too. But yeah, it was really great. And then seeing Greg over at MacRail, we were all kind of neighbors in an L shape. So that was good. And then the folks down at White River Productions right at the end. So all of us were all together. So the only guy missing was you, my friend.
I know. I never go anywhere. I'm just an old homebody, me and the dog.
We're hoping to get you reeled out there. You mentioned that it's been about 10 years, so I think you're due. So hopefully we can get you out there, but always great to be able to talk about the show and what happened there and, the events and of course, all the amazing new releases and being able to see all of that stuff in person or, being able to talk about it. It's always a great time.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And boy, there was a lot of coverage from a lot of different folks. You mentioned Rob. I saw his pictures, I think, throughout the weekend on Facebook of him standing with various people. And so, yeah, that camaraderie and getting to see those folks, it's a lot of fun. And that's an amazing show.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah. So walking through the show, just, it really is. And I've said it a multitude of times, the SEMA of model railroading. And it was neat. I was even witness to a couple conversations that we'll get into the details, but a lot of the next new things are also happening, the next plans for things and vendor A meeting vendor B, or at the end of the show, watching hobby shops go to vendors and, taking some inventory and placing orders. It really is where business happens in model railroading as well. So not only, again, not only a train show, but also that trade TRADE show. So you get to see all the aspects of what's happening at Amherst.
Did you get to go walk around much? Did you buy anything? Like, did you find any neat stuff or?
So, yeah. So, what I had done is, I of course I'm itching, we all itch for things. And the first thing I wanted to get was that new Aurora Miniatures, Transcana 50-foot boxcar. They had a 2003 and 2004 version. I wanted to find the 2003 version and I found it at the fine folks at Making Tracks and was able to pick that up. And then I went over to our good friends over at Spring Creek Model Trains. And of course, the Zuckers, they're so much fun. Mike and Jeff, and I met Mom, and Dad was busy running the cash register. And they had the whole team there because that's the Amherst show. They bring the whole team to get things going. But there was in fact, if you see above my shoulder, if you're watching live, there is another ET44 AC sitting above my shoulder. This is the CN version of it, the 3011. So it normally is the Norfolk Southern unit sitting up there, but the CN one is sitting up there now. So a little bit brighter red in the studio. So picked that up from the folks over at Spring Creek. We're just seeing a comment come in from Late Night Model Railroad. It was great to see Joey there. Joey came and was great. He's got a great product, and I'm really looking forward to seeing more roll out of Late Night Hobbies. And it was great to see him again, as I was saying. But yeah, so I bought some cars. I bought another car I bought a Seaboard Central coil car from our friend Chris Palmieri at Home Shops. And I tried to make more time. And next year I am going to make more time. And you really have to, you heard me say, come with a plan. Well, I didn't take my own advice and I didn't come with a plan. I kind of winged it and I paid for that. I didn't get to see nearly as many people nor as many things as I wanted to. And as I was looking through a preview of what we're going to be talking about tonight for new releases, I was like, oh, shoot, I didn't even get over there to see those folks and I missed them, or where the heck were they? Or
yeah,
it's one of those shows you have to go with a plan. And I said it and I didn't follow my own advice. So in turn, I'm just waiting for 2026 where I actually take my own advice and I put some time aside to get out there and see folks. But amazing the amount that actually came and saw me, which I truly appreciate, and the people and vendors. And I'm just thinking of I saw Craig Fuller from Fire Crown. He was walking around. Yeah. He mentioned, we talked about him when they purchased Model Railroader, that, this was all a new hobby for him. And he was diving in and he picked the right place to come to start learning about model railroading. Absolutely. So it was great to see him learning about the model railroading hobby, as he's now owns Model Railroader, of course. So yeah, lots and lots of great people. Awesome event. I could talk for hours about it. We don't have that much time, but I mean, it was just a great time. And of course, the dinners were all fun after events. That it's more than just the show. It's everything really, from Friday night to Sunday. By the time you leave, a whirlwind of things happening. So great time.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think you mentioned the Spring Creek folks, and yeah, Jeff Zucker was telling me that like he and Mike flew out, and Dave and Deb were running the truck, and they're doing multiple shows. They're in the Big Timonium show is in Maryland this first weekend of February, and they're there. And then, so I think they're doing 2 or 3 shows. They've got like another yet, Indianapolis, sometime in later February. So literally on the road for like every weekend for about a month. So,
wow. Yeah. I wonder what the logistics of that, like they got to reload that trailer at some point. It must have to
I would think. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know how they do all that, but boy, they certainly do keep busy. Yeah.
Well, they got the logistics mastered. We've talked about that when we've had them on the show. I'm very impressed. They had such a nice setup. They're always in the Stroh building. They're really the big draw of that building. They take up one half of the wall there, and they were having a great time. Boy, we had some great laughs with Mike and Jeff. We were laughing real good, and some lighthearted moments over there. And of course, I had to buy something, and I bought that locomotive from them. So I bought it from some good people, and glad I was able to connect with them.
So you ready to look at new products?
Let's look at some new products, because maybe our wallets will be recovered by the time some of this comes out. I mean, there were some really big announcements from a lot of folks, so it'd be really nice to be able to dive into all of this.
I've got just a little bit of everything for us tonight. Some things that I'm sure that we've already heard about, to some things that we're still, here it is almost a week after the show, and I was still finding things that were a surprise to me, that it's like, oh, I didn't see that before. I hadn't heard that before. So we'll kind of run down our list of things. And then what you always post, links for everything will be below for people to go look at, right?
That's right. So those that are listening, you can see the link, but if you're listening, aroundthelayout.com/144 will be the link to go check out all of the info that we're going to share here tonight.
And we'll kick things off. This is one that I only caught this today. And this was at the Kadee Quality Products booth. And I did not realize that they apparently showed a new HO scale freight car project. And they had it in a tube on display, an early example of it. And it is a 50-foot flat car, 50-ton AAR flat car. So it would be kind of, typical with the other cars in their line. The 40-foot box car, the PS1, was their first in the late 1990s in HO. And then they've got the 50-foot box car and like those wonderful little tank cars and the 2-bay hoppers. But this will be a new addition to their line of freight cars, and it'll be a fully assembled. This would be like a 53-foot, kind of general service flat car. So an interesting thing. And again, a surprise to me. I had not caught that before or heard anybody mention that. I think this was a picture that Otto Vondruck from Railroad Model Craftsman had caught and had posted that.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah, interesting. Nice to see a new car adding to that line. There's also a couple of new coupler things coming out. I know I had run the shelf couplers, which I think are for like tank cars. See the little bottom pin is added to the knuckle coupler. That there's a couple of different sizes of those coming out, and then the NEM, the European style that snap in place. There's four different shank lengths and an adjustable height option coming for those. Those will be the NEM 363 couplers from Kadee, and again, those to convert European stuff to run on our HO stuff, so it connects well with knuckle couplers. So interesting new stuff from Kadee there.
Yeah, and I talked about the vendors that I didn't get around to see, and here is one of them. I would have loved to seen the folks at Kadee and checked out what was new. So I'm glad Otto caught those photos for us to share. So thank you, Otto.
This one, I think, was probably one of the more controversial announcements at the show. Lionel HO's 284 Berkshire. And I think why I say controversial was it immediately got greeted with, what? You know, they've already done that before. And what is this? Because I think it's got like a $6.99 or $7.99 asking price. And again, it's like, is that toy Berkshire that they did for the Polar Express sets? And not at all. This is a new tooling 284 Berkshire. They're doing nickel plate, Pierre Marquette, C&O, like the 1969 American Railroads, as well as some like fantasy or what if liveries for some of the prototype owners that had them. So this is a new high-end 284 HO scale Berkshire steam locomotive announced from Lionel. And it will have ESU electronics, if I remember correctly, will be put in it as well. So an interesting addition. As they said in some of their announcements on this is the first time in about 20 years that Lionel has aimed at this end of the market. And what we'd be talking about was the old, the Challenger and like the veranda turbines that Lionel did in the early 2000s. When they came back into HO at that point. So this is definitely kind of a new direction. Not that they're moving away necessarily from the starter or entry level and collector market that they've been doing with their current releases, but certainly HO. And then they, in addition to the 284 Berkshire, they're also talking about they've got a Penske G38B ore car, and they had an early sample of it, as well as the Berkshires were on display at Amherst. And this ore car will come in various, it's a Penske prototype, so there's Penske, Penn Central, Conrail road names. They'll come in sets of cars, single cars, and they're also doing kind of an oxide red and then a black unlettered as well. And again, this is a high-end rendering of this ore car. So another interesting kind of move on Lionel. They'll have both a locomotive and a piece of rolling stock that, again, they're kind of aiming at the upper end of the market. So this you can all find on Lionel's website, and there are at least two catalogs. There's at least one, if not two catalogs for HO. If you go to the catalog section of their website, that'll walk you through and show you these two new release items. So kind of surprising stuff out of Lionel.
Yeah, and another thing that happened with Lionel during the Railroad Hobby Show is they celebrated their 125th anniversary. They had the mascot there. Folks were taking photos with I don't know what's the name of the mascot. Do you know what the name? I would imagine it would be Lionel the lion, right? But
yeah, Lion Chief. I'm not sure. It escapes me. Yeah, but
well, anyway, you missed your chance to get a picture with him because he was there and taking photos, and they had some birthday cake and celebrating that. So 125 years. That's an amazing accomplishment for Lionel. So congratulations to them.
Very neat. Company much, much younger than Lionel, Prairie Shadows Model Railroads. We've talked with them before.
We have.
And boy, they've literally been on fire of late with new products. I know they showed, I just saw someone mention that Sandy is the name of the Lionel mascot.
Aha, Sandy, though.
There we go.
Okay,
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Todd.
Thank you. Prairie Shadows showed this is the Point St. Charles van, or as we would call it, caboose, that they're bringing out in N-scale. And boy, this is an incredible looking N-scale model. They had early samples of these at Amherst. Several road names and different, like this is a second-hand owner one. There's Algoma Central, there's with Wisconsin Central on it. Alaska. But really an interesting little caboose, a curious prototype. And this is new from Prairie Shadows. This, I believe, is on their website. One of the other things I'm going to talk about tonight is not yet. They've done a Thrall 5250 center flow, which I have a review coming up in Model Railroad News of a new run of those, which I think was the second production of those. But they announced a Thrall 5150 center flow is coming as well. I think it's a slightly older prototype. This will get you back into maybe the like about 1990-ish area. And they showed renderings for those. This is a 3-bay center flow. And boy, I think, didn't I share when I was doing those reviews, I think I sent you one of the samples. Did we give that one away, or I forget? Yeah.
We did not. I think
not.
that is still sitting somewhere here around the Layout Podcast studio, to be quite honest.
Boy, it's a beautiful model. And that's, this will be another center flow hopper. And then that pressure differential, that PD 5000, they've got painted samples on those that they've been showing as well. So lots of neat stuff. And the Jeep 30 Eco will be their first diesel locomotive, that Canadian Pacific rebuild. So lots of stuff rolling from Prairie Shadows. Really neat stuff.
What do you think the most important thing they're doing is to me?
To you, probably those box cars. I think they have some high cube box cars.
They do. They had a sample of a CN. I believe it is their Trinity 50-foot high cube. They had it where it was the new CN website logo, but you could see the old big CN noodle ghosted behind it. They had that sample on their table at Prairie Shadows. So Prairie Shadows doing a beautiful job with those 50-foot high cubes. Keep them coming because, hey, that's how you get my wallet open.
Well, their rolling stock has been tremendous. That Jeep 30 Eco will be their first HO scale diesel locomotive release. Can't wait to see what they crank out with that. So neat stuff there. Rapido trains. Oh my gosh, we're retiring another one of my all-time favorite AHM freight cars. The ACF Helium car will now be a Rapido Trains HO scale, high-end, nicely detailed, accurate rendering. This was announced just ahead of or right at Amherst. As I mentioned, this was a classic made by Roco in Austria for the AHM line, and one that both collectors and modelers that want to try to take it apart and make a decent model of it have worked with for years. And you won't have to do that anymore because there's going to be this awesome Rapido model. An early mock-up, pictures of it were shared. This should be a really interesting piece.
Yeah, for sure.
That I'm excited to see this come out, and a bit of a surprise to get to see this car return from Rapido as a high-end release.
What era modeler would this kind of fit towards?
These Santa Fe serve the mines, and as I remember, I've read a couple articles on them off the top of my head. They're either up in like the Texas Panhandle or up in New Mexico somewhere, and I think the U.S. government owns or controlled the helium mines. So most of the stuff was either like Department of Defense or U.S. Navy. And then the cars carrying the helium came out on the Santa Fe. And this would have been, I maybe have seen pictures of them with steam, but it's essentially kind of early diesel. And the cars make it basically to where I think they time out. There's pictures of these cars where there's two of them sitting on like an 89-foot flat car. And my guess on some of that was to bring it up to, the interchange compatibility and such. They basically turned the cars themselves into a load that rode on a flat car so that they weren't having to do anything with the car. So it's got a long range of prototype, eras to run, but very cool. I'm excited to see it happening. So yeah.
Definitely a conversation piece, something definitely different, to run around. You'll definitely see that car sticking out.
Absolutely. Also, I just unpacked Rapido's BART set. The Bay Area Rapid Transit set showed up this week. I'm sending this set up to Kevin Holland, the editor of Passenger Train Journal. Will be reviewing this for Model Railroad News. But the HO scale BARTs are here. The two power cars, or the two in cars, are powered. And then they've got like connectors that go in between each of the cars that, also conduct the lighting between them all. It's a really neat set. I haven't done a lot of the testing yet. I did photography on them this week. But an amazing model. and from what I've heard was a very solid, good seller for Rapido. So I'm eager to see what some of the modelers do with this once these are out in the wild.
Those Rapido guys really like their passenger stuff. That's for sure. And they do a
Absolutely.
beautiful job with it too. And gals, guys and gals. I should say. Yes.
New from Ron's books, there's been several titles from him. You know, he's been doing that one manufacturer archive series, but I just received, this is a Central Vermont, that's not far from your neck of the woods, is it?
It is not. In fact, it is in my neck of the woods here. It runs from St. Albans, Vermont down to New London, Connecticut. And yeah, we're one of my favorite lines. Of course, I'm more familiar with it running New England Central on it, but it's a great line.
It's a beautiful book. This is a soft cover book. It's available from Ron's book, Silver Lake Images, and it's all black and white photography, as I remember. There may be a little bit of color in it, and it basically focuses on steam and early diesel, and really neat and fascinating thing, because it's not an area that I certainly know all that well and have never rail fans. So, you know, it's neat to see foreign places that we don't get to visit a lot. So this was a very interesting book, and definitely check it out. There's a Chicago Northwestern book that came out recently from Ron's books as well. So definitely visit them and take a look, because some neat stuff there happening from that company.
Foreign to you, home for me. And then I got to see Lee over at Ron's books. I caught him late in the day on Sunday. He looked a little exhausted. He said he was extremely busy. Of course, a crowd of 27,535. There was a lot of folks over there looking for books, and he was, but they had a great show, and they were selling books by the pound over there. So yeah, it was great to see him. And awesome. I'm sure you'll catch him again at another train show, but yeah, ronsbooks.com, I believe, is where you would find him any other time. So yeah, very good.
Awesome. Then ScaleTrains, as always, we look to some of the big manufacturers for exciting announcements, and boy, they had some neat stuff. A new run of the HO Scale Rivet Counter GB30s was announced with Amherst, and this collection has some just regular 30s in it, and then there's also some rebuilt 30s as well, the Jeep 30M, U, so you hit like the Burlington Northern, the Santa Fe, rebuilds as well. One of the things I thought was interesting, I say Jeep 30, it's Jeep 39E, I think is what BN called those when they rebuilt them. And then the Santa Fe is a Jeep 30U. There's some regular different phase GP30s like Penn Central, Chicago Great Western, which is neat to see done, Union Pacific. Among the chassis system ones, I'm eager to see what they do with the one they're calling distressed paint. And I remember seeing some of these, would have been in like the late 80s. I had a buddy that was at Purdue University in Indiana, and road trips out there, I would cross the CSX, and I can remember shooting some of these Jeep 30s. And the one illustration that ScaleTrains shows of it is most definitely what I remember they look like, with the patch on the cab and the CSXT, and then the chassis paint kind of peeling away. So this is a new rivet counter runs. There'll be standard DC as well as DCC sound coming out in a range of Jeep 30s. And then the big surprise news was SD7s and SD9s in HO scale for the rivet counter line. And boy, there's some beautiful paint schemes in those, because that takes you back to the SD9s 1954 and the SD7s just a few years before that. So early diesel greatness, like the Black Way of the Zephyrs Burlington route. ScaleTrains has nice renderings on their website that you can take a look at all these. And again, they're hitting both 7 and 9. Also some later looks, Conrail, and there's a couple of different Norfolk Southerns that you can see are rebuilds. Great Northern in the simplified Empire builder. So a little bit of everything for you there in SD7-9s. And if you're feeling a bit of deja vu of, didn't someone else? Yeah, someone else did. We've got SD7-9s and 10s, the Milwaukee rebuilds and Chicago Northwestern rebuilds are on their way from Rapido and landing soon. So that rule in the hobby of, we go from, although there have been other models in the past for the SD7-9, but we seem to go from there's not a great one on the market to multiple ones on the market. And boy, these will both be intriguing to see.
Nothing like choices to be able, to be had. And it's funny you called it deja vu, and I was thinking it's deja vu all over again, which is another one of their sayings. And ScaleTrains came out with their slogan, and I believe it was "A new era begins again," which it was just so Yogi Berra kind of sound to it. It was like that's all I could think of is deja vu all over again kind of thing. But great stuff out of ScaleTrains here.
And I think I see Andy Dorsch, weren't they called Cadillacs? And yeah, I think on the Southern Pacific, the guys, because of the way they said they rode so nice, they rode like a Cadillac.
Wow.
And so, yeah, the SP, I think, crews called them Cadillacs. But should be really neat to see. It's nice to see this getting the attention from both Rapido and ScaleTrains to have, because with all the road names and as long as some of these lasted, like I say, in this group, we go from early diesel, like that Black Way of the Zephyrs Burlington route, up to a rebuilt Norfolk Southern that would still basically be out there today working in a yard someplace. So certainly room for both companies bringing models of those out.
Yeah, for sure.
The ScaleTrains also has got a Trinity 7,500 cubic foot double door boxcar coming. This is the rib side that's got both kind of the checker pattern. You've got the vertical ribs that we're used to, and the horizontal, like stiffener ribs, are on the side of those cars too. They're doing two versions of this car. I need to contact and talk to Chris Brimley about it. I heard he's the project guy on this, and they're doing a rivet counter, and then they're also doing an operator version of the car. And looking at the two, they both looked really, really nice. It looks like the operator version has got a bit more molded on as far as the ladders and like the door railings on the two plugs. But boy, I thought it really looked, spectacular in addition to the beautiful rivet counter. And this is a popular car we see today. This is like a T-box, rail box, and then that new bright yellow Union Pacific with all the lettering placed up high. But both these were announced for Amherst rivet counter and operator editions of a Trinity. I think it's a 60 foot. I don't think it's a 50 foot. 50 foot, I think, is your favorite, right? But how come the 60 doesn't rate for you?
I don't know. I think it maybe the length. I just something about that short
50. Yeah,
the short but high. I don't know. I mean, the 60 footers are cool too. I mean, just the kind of billboardy kind of looking thing to me, like even the 60 footers. But I don't know. There's just something, I don't know, a little bit more, I don't know, bold because it is shorter, but tall, the same height, that plate F. So
what about the baby high cubes then? That's my favorite, the little 40 foot.
Well, Chris Palmieri came out with those 40 footers. He had them in a bunch of them. And I walked over to him and I just kept making the motion of stretching them out. Like, come on, stretch it out a little bit more. And then, so I do take full credit for the, Home Shop's release of those 50-foot high cubes that he did, and Michigan Interstate and MD Rail. And there was a third one. I apologize. I don't remember the third one, but I'm taking 100% credit, although it's completely undeserved. But nonetheless, 60 footers, 50 footers. And these bigger high cubes are really cool stuff. I love a high cube in general. So very cool that ScaleTrains is coming out with this. And of course, the kind of the tradition from the Exact Rail line moving over to ScaleTrains, and I expect nothing but awesome stuff out of them.
I mean, and we talked about these two Trinity boxcars in HO, the new run of GP30s, the all new announced SD79, and I'm skipping over. There's a whole new run of HO scale SD40-2s that they announced as well, including like the Burlington Northern Bicentennial and some other neat stuff there. There's a couple of different, the Whitman Green MKTs in a couple of versions. So get over to ScaleTrains and take a look at those. I mean, it's all tons and tons of stuff. And then David Liebach always shows up with something cool at a train show. He had a new run of his X58 boxcars, which is just old enough. It was a Pennsy boxcar, and then Penn Central built them. Late 60s is a prototype.
I bet you that car didn't stay white for long, did it, in the prototype?
Isn't that intriguing? I've been meaning to call him. His birthday was this past week, so I've been meaning to call him just to wish him a happy birthday. But yeah, I had some questions to ask on. He has a white Penn Central boxcar in the group, which is interesting. And there's another one that's a white Penn Central with a red door that almost looks like it's a Soo line, but I know Soo never had these X58s. But he's found some really interesting prototypes to bring out in HO. There's a Norfolk Southern like maintenance of way car that's basically in like a silvery gray finish with a small NS logo on the side. That's an intriguing looking car. But boy, this is a beautiful box car. Lehigh Valley was another one because they were associated with Penske, so they got some of them from the first runs. But boy, it's a cool car, and the white pin centrals especially have really kind of got my interest, and I need to hit him up and ask him, hey, what's going on with those? Where'd you find those, and what's the story on them? But that's Tangent Scale Models, X58, a new run of those in HO scale was out for Amherst.
No, I'm speaking a little out of school, but knowing Tangent and me mentioning this before, I bet you if we go to their website, I bet you they have some really great information. And,
I'm sure he does.
And as I'm speaking, I am absolutely right. Go to tangentscalemodels.com. Right on the top, it has a link to this where all of these releases are mentioned. We'll put the links also on our website, again, aroundthelayout.com/144. But yeah, all the info is right here. Prototype photos, everything. David at Tangent and their team do an outstanding job of not only making the models, but telling you all about them.
Which is very cool. Awesome stuff. But that was his new thing. And then I think that's my wrap up. I want to also mention Kevin Udaly has started a YouTube channel, WRP Adventures. He's got the first two of, he rail fans down in Australia a lot, is one of his favorite places to go. And he's been putting together this series. I've seen him working on this the last few months when I've been down in Texas and visited, and he's shown me clips and things he's done. There's 2 episodes out now. You can find it on YouTube. It's youtube.com, and you can basically just on YouTube. I searched it up today to double check, but WRP Adventures, and you can find them. They're fun videos where he talks about both just the rail scene in Australia and then shows some great videos of the stuff. And this, I think I was talking to him in the last week or so, asking how many parts. It's 6 or 8 parts will be this whole series of videos on this WRP Adventures. So check those out. You can find that on YouTube, subscribe, and then as he unfurls new episodes for this series and other things, you'll get to see those.
Very neat. Yeah. And we've got quite a few friends from Australia over there. We've got, of course, our executive producer, Paul Kessar, who's backstage right now, helping us out with this live production. And then we had Australians over at the show too, which was really cool. Seeing Darren Daz Lee and of course Marty Jenkins over there made the travel all the way. I think Marty described it as 24 hours in a toothpaste tube is how he was telling the whole story, but handing out Australian koalas, clipping them on our lanyards. And then Darren had,
I remember Marty doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then he had Darren had the kangaroos on keychains. And I believe those gentlemen right now should probably be in the air. I think either heading to Vancouver or back to Australia. So we'll wish them a safe flight and safe trip. And it was great seeing them as well, making the trip that far for the Railroad Hobby Show. Very cool stuff.
Wow. So,
well, wow. A lot of awesome stuff coming out of Amherst. And we just kind of skimmed the surface tonight. There was just so much going on and
absolutely
new products and, folks that, just off the top of my head, one of the folks will be getting on the show very soon over at scalesigns.com. They had their very first Amherst show. And at the end, Thomas Garza nearly needed to be held up because he was just so busy and exhausted, but beautiful stuff going on there. It was neat to see Pico make a trip over from the UK to exhibit at the show. Just amazing. Yeah. And I'll leave a bunch of folks out. Great to see Bernard at Mini Prints. I saw him put some comments up and he was in the chat tonight. It was great to see Bernard and he was over there scanning folks. And, again, our friends over at ScaleTrains can't thank you enough for the opportunity to give away 5 locomotives to somebody. That winner was like, I never win anything. Well, I said, well, you may never win anything like this ever again. This is a pretty big one in the model railroading world. $2,000 worth of locomotives that'll be heading his way. So very amazing stuff. And of course, Chris Palmieri at Home Shops. Make sure you go guys show them both your support and thank them for supporting the podcast. We had a bunch of people take bingo cards. We had a whole list of vendors. Tully Models was just cranking it out over there with all of his stuff. He's been a great supporter of the podcast. And we made like a little bingo card. And I was handing them out and saying, hey, folks, why don't you, just make sure you get over there and you see all these folks and showing our supporters. And we had a lot of them. So really want to thank everybody for going over and showing the support. We had a few people bring their full bingo cards back and showed them to us, which was really, really cool. And we got bigger plans for 2026 and that bingo card idea. I think we'll begin doing that as a giveaway as well. So stay tuned for all that. I got a lot of notes written down. We're only about 360 days away from the 2026 Railroad Hobby Show. So we'll be making plans and whatnot. So really great time. Just again, if you haven't been to the Railroad Hobby Show in West Springfield, Mass, make it part of your plans at some point. Get out there and see this amazing show that the folks at the Amherst Railway Society put on.
It is absolutely. That's a must do. If you're a model railroader, you've got to make that at least once. So yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. So, well, I want to thank everybody who joined us live tonight to find out what's happening in model railroading. A little special, a little Friday night live. If you missed it live and you're catching it on the replay, thanks for tuning in. And Tony, of course, thank you for coming by and telling us what's happening in model railroading.
Absolutely right. Appreciate it. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Around the Layout. Learn more about today's episode, check out past shows, and much more on our website, aroundthelayout.com. Show your support by becoming an operating crew member at aroundthelayout.com/crew. Follow us on social media, aroundthelayout.com/social. And send us your feedback, aroundthelayout@gmail.com. Thanks for hanging out with us around the layout.